It's full-blown migrant madness. A Sri Lankan paedophile who molested young boys has been allowed to stay in Britain because he might face persecution back home for being gay. Well, I don't care. Persecute the paedophile. In court, he was described as, quote, a danger to the public. We've been trying to deport him for 12 years, and he's even been granted anonymity. But our poxy immigration judges decide he can stay in Britain just in case the Sri Lankans torture him for being a homosexual. Do you think, really, that the fact that he's a paedophile might not be more of a danger to him than the fact that he's gay? But anyway, why is he our problem? Get him gone. But apparently the judge decided Article 3 of the ECHR, which prohibits torture and inhumane treatment, meant that he has to stay. Rubbish. Why doesn't the judge let him live round at their house then? Another case has been revealed today. A Syrian asylum seeker who sexually assaulted a teenager might not be sent to prison because it could breach his human rights. Hassan Abu Hayle was prowling the streets at 3 a.m. looking for a woman to abuse. His lawyer, Graham Gilbert, claimed that Hayle has been suffering from PTSD, having been tortured in a Syrian jail under the regime of Bashar al-Assad. And he even got a doctor's report to say that if he went to prison, it could make his condition worse. Well, I'm sorry, what about the condition of the teenage girl that he abused? This man is a monster. Can you guess how he might avoid prison? Article 3 of the ECHR again. Yep, that's right. It's up to the judge to interpret it. Another ridiculous case. A Sudanese asylum seeker with a receding hairline and facial hair has successfully claimed to be a child. The Home Office claimed he was at least 23 years old, and they confirmed that with a full age assessment. In fact, they said he might have been as old as 25. They said he had wrinkles and crow's feet and that he'd obviously been shaving for a while. Are you ready for this one, though? You ready for this? One of the judges, Hugo Benedict Norton-Taylor, overruled them. Yes, they said that he was a child and made the local authority pay £30,000 for his legal fees. They found it was more likely than not that he provided a true account of his age and date of birth. That's the same judge that decided to let Gazan so-called refugees come and live in Britain. That man is a complete joke, in my view. And I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I'd like to deport these immigration judges. The judges and the lawyers need to be named and shamed. The foreign monsters need to be named and shamed. They might say they are just applying the law, but thanks to these judges, foreign paedophiles, predatory sex monsters, terrorists and rapists seem to have more rights in Britain than actual British citizens like you and me. Let's get thoughts to my panel. We, of course, have former Conservative MP Anna Firth. We've got Tory peer, Lord Bailey, and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. I mean, honestly, I just look at this procession of wrong-uns that are allowed to stay in Britain at the moment, and we've got here, a Sri Lankan paedophile who's also been granted anonymity. Why?
It's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? And you're absolutely right to say that we have got to question where these judges are going. The last example you gave was particularly telling. Sudanese man claiming to be 16, actually 23 or 25. The thing that's so concerning about that is that the Home Office has an 87-page document on how they test for age. It's not as good as it could be. We should be doing what almost every other member state now does, and that's use scientific testing. But nonetheless, the Home Office said he is 23 or 25. We cannot have a system where judges overrule what the Home Office is saying.
Because if they say now that this guy's 16, we could end up with a 25-year-old Sudanese man in a school.
Technically, he has to go to school. Legally, if he's a ward of the state and he's 16, a minor, he has to legally go to school and he'll be around with people's children. But I think there's a deeper problem. We in this country are giving a lot of our political decisions to the legal system, and the risk for the legal system is the public sooner or later will ask for some control when they keep reading ridiculous stories like this. And when politicians are most vulnerable is when the public feel they're out of touch. Judgments like this, to the public eye at least, could look like these judges are out of touch, and people will start to ask for changes to be made to the legal system, to their autonomy, which would be disastrous. Judges have some responsibility to take the temperature and respond in the way that it was culturally meant, not always the way that they then, to many eyes, overinterpret it.
What do you make of this, Matthew? I mean, for my view, I'm increasingly just thinking that the only logical explanation here is that these judges are hard-left, open border fanatics in a wig and a gown.
Yeah, and what's interesting in some of these cases is that actually other judges have gone the other way, and then on appeal, these seemingly absolutely daft, and daft is perhaps far too nice a word for the decisions that have been made. And I think every one of these judges needs to take a long, hard look at whether what they're doing passes the common sense test. I believe in human rights law. I believe we should have, that we should have a framework. But if you're making decisions like this, you're going to bring that framework into disrepute. And what I would just say is that whether that framework is a British Bill of Rights, which the Tories have talked about, or the ECHR, which we're currently, we're currently part of, doesn't matter what the rules are. If they're interpreted like this, you're going to end up in problems.
That's the important point. It's the culture. It's the way in which they're interpreted. And look, when we talk about ECHR, we kind of have to be careful because this end of it seems to be not working, but it covers a plethora of things that we all probably would want to keep. And now, if we keep that or not, because it's squarely on the political agenda, rests a lot with the decisions that judges are making.
Well,
what we have to absolutely change, though, is the fact that while these appeals are going on, these adults are actually kept in children's accommodation. I mean, children's accommodation is where vulnerable children are likely to be, and we are putting adults in that accommodation. That is totally wrong. This judge needs to go to Specsavers. My son is 21, he's nearly 22. He does not have a receding hairline. He doesn't have heaps and heaps of facial hair. He doesn't have crow's feet. He doesn't have a wrinkled brow. He's nearly 22. He certainly didn't have that at 16.
It goes deeper than that. In our system, if you apply for asylum, you should be open to any test that proves you're worthy of it. Our system to say, OK, we're going to accept your asylum after we've tested where you come from, are you at risk, are you a minor, everything should be tested. And if you won't submit yourself to those, then you shouldn't be able to claim asylum.
Which is what they do in 25 out of 27 member states. If it doesn't infringe their human rights over there, it can't infringe their...
I actually, I know we often disagree on this sofa, but I agree that we need to have the testing, not least because I know a social worker who manages young asylum seekers in a major northern city, and she says the real danger is you get people who are older, and of course, not only are they putting the risk at people when they go to school, they're putting at risk the other people, the genuine children, in the asylum accommodation.
One of the reasons why we can't have full-blown age verification checks like dental records and wrist x-rays and all of that is, again, because of judges' interpretations of the ECHR.
But it can't be, Patrick.
But then surely we have to leave the ECHR
No,
there.
but Patrick, if that's not true, why does it happen in 25 out of 20?
Every one of which is a member of the ECHR.
Our judges' interpretation. So this is where I'm at, which is I get where I think you're all saying...
I know, it's remarkable.
Absence has made the heart grow.
Absolutely.
I get what you're all saying, which is that, OK, in theory, this ECHR is great and we need it for other stuff and all of that. But if we have a problem in this country, which we clearly do, which is our immigration judges are always pretty much interpreting the ECHR in a way that favours, in this case, foreign paedophiles and sex monsters, then we have to do something about that.
Well, that's culture. So if we had another... Because let's be clear, the ECHR says don't do these things, and it appears that the judges are continuing to do these things. Another line of rules, they could do it anyway. What will happen, they'll keep on until politics is forced to come and change it for them. And it looks like if you change the rules, they don't respond, so we might end up changing the judges or the legal system. And that's why I repeat, our legal system has a responsibility to represent itself properly so it isn't affected by politics.
I look at some of these cases. So, for example, this Syrian man who was out in a car at 3 o'clock in the morning, I believe it was around the Bournemouth area, and he was prowling the streets, curb crawling, basically, to try to find, young girls or women that were vulnerable, alone, possibly drunk, and isolated. And he found a 19-year-old girl who was sitting on the side of a road waiting for her dad to come and pick her up. So he gets out of his car, he goes and molests her. He was then stopped by members of the public, so well done to whoever has stopped this guy. But he's not going to stop, right? And if we can't send him to prison because his lawyer and his doctor are saying, well, look, it would be against Article 3, it would be against inhumane treatment and torture because he suffered PTSD and it would make it worse. If those judges side with that guy is, in my view, likely to go out and do that again.
That would be fundamentally
The problem is with the law, because what the law should say, that girl now has PTSD. She takes precedence over you because she never broke the law. You broke the law. That's it. That should
and that's
to do with asylum. That's ridiculous law.
But also, well, we said this many times before, if you come to this country and you commit offences, you should be sent back home, and that's the end of it. You come
You can
here.
send people to Sri Lanka. This is not one of those countries, it's not Afghanistan. I don't think we should send people anywhere, by the way, but it's not Afghanistan.
Of course we should.
Matthew, on this, with these judges, what I don't get about these judges is how they can sleep at night, because certainly there's a case of a Sri Lankan paedophile who molested three young boys, OK? Again, I don't think he's going to stop doing that. I don't think that they don't tend to stop, or do they? It's a compulsion or whatever you want to call it, perversion, whatever. So if we keep him in Britain, which we are doing, like, more boys are probably going to be molested. But how can
that's clearly a danger, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I think that's the case, and I think that I would say to every one of these judges who think that they are doing the right thing, who think that they are doing the right thing for the world's oppressed, as it were, that what they're actually doing is bringing a system into disrepute.
Yep.
They're withdrawing, they're pushing public opinion away from any sense of asylum, so that people just get so angry at the nonsense that they lose the actual fact that we should offer to asylum to those, particularly those genuine young people who are fleeing war zones, gets completely lost. So I don't know what we do, because as Sean was saying, if we change the laws, how do we change the judges? And the lady Chief Justice who said that it's this week, who's telling both Keir and Kemi off, I think we can agree on this, needs to realise that politicians need to be sovereign.
People have to accept the consequence of their own actions. And I think in society previously, doctors used to be beyond reproach, and maybe school teachers did. I think society's changed with that now, and I think it's changed with the judges.
I actually found myself agreeing with the Prime Minister this week when he said that obviously our Parliament must be setting our immigration policy. That is why we elect our MPs.
Yeah.
That is one of the things we expect them to do. And if judges are now making policy, then I'm afraid that is a massive problem.
There's two things to say. Parliament has been very guilty in giving up its own sovereignty, and Keir Starmer, all of us have been part of that. So Parliament needs to wind that back. And the other important thing to say is these judges, if their personal feeling is pro-immigration, they need to be careful, because they are going to push the pendulum far back in the other direction, and we'll lose any sense of balance. We have some sense of balance now. They could ruin that.
They could. Now,